Hey guys, it's Tiny Tom Logan back with another video for you. Today we're actually going to be doing an OverKILL3D video. For those of you that haven't seen these videos before, it's quite literally when we put a system together or we do a review for you guys, which is so ridiculously kind of out of price or over spec'd for a certain thing that it's what most of you would call overkill. We've done things for graphics cards in the past. We did do one previously with the dual Xeon board, but this dual Xeon board, we've got the Asus dual Xeon board out again, but we've got some new Intel CPUs. They're the 2697V2 E5 Xeons, and it's the version 2s. The E5 is kind of the group of processors that it comes from. But these little babies, yeah, they're a little bit special. They've got 12 cores per CPU, and we've got 2 of them running in here, so that is a total of 24 cores. But where they're hyper-threaded, that means your system or your CPU, or sorry, your operating system is actually going to see 48 cores, because it can put you know, an operation on each one, because that's how hyper-threading works. So it's a tiny little bit bonkers mental. I wonder if anyone will get that. But she's bonkers mental. Comments, see if you get it. So yes, now these CPUs, they do come with an immensely high price tag. They're £2,000 each. So this rig that's beside me, even though we've kept it relatively basic, and by that I mean we've not got a humongous graphics card in here. We're running a Club 3D. We've just rolled into a 280X. It's the same performance as our old 7970, but it's just the newer variant, because the other one died. Well, it didn't die. The fans decided to stop working. But so we've got a new one of those in there. Now the only reason we're running a 280X in there is because then we can compare it with the results that we've done with other boards in the past, and also the last time that we had the Xeons out, which was the 32 core, the 16 core 32 thread monster kind of madness that we did. And then we've got 2 lots of memory in here, which we obviously don't really need, but we did it so it was all nice and pretty, and we have tried to make the system look nice as well. Something else that we've decided to do slightly differently this time is we're running 2 Corsair H75 all-in-one units. Now they're only the little skinny radiators, but it's just something with the Xeons, they don't create that much heat. And this is all stuff that we're going to discuss and talk about as we run through. Now you may end up seeing more of this system in the future, because I'm going to be using it to put some PPD towards the OC3D folding team. We're actually 43rd in the world as I looked today, which, considering we've only got a handful of active members folding for that folding team, it's a really, really high, you know, to be in the top 50 is a hell of an achievement. And generally the teams in the top 50 have got, you know, a lot of members. But I'm going to be using this to put some points towards the folding team, which obviously helps with medical research, and it is a great way of getting in amongst the community. And also, when you think about it, you get points and it becomes addictive, so you're constantly looking for ways to try and get a little bit more out of your system. And I've not done it for a fair while, and just the little time that I've spent trying to work on this rig has literally got me thinking of, you know, where can I put more graphics cards, where can I do this, how can I do that, how can I run stuff. And as you'll see when we start working with this, the amount of cores in this actually become an issue with the operating system, which is something I wasn't prepared for. So it's quite an interesting one. We're not going to try and drag it out too much. If you look in I know it's underneath me. If you click the link underneath and go to the OC3D website, we've changed the graphs. They're now going to be in order, and they're not flash anymore, so it's very mobile friendly. They're going to be they're JPEGs now, and you'll see the little icons and everything, and if you read, you'll see how we've ordered them and all that type of stuff. So we are trying to get stuff done for you to make things a little bit easier. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to give you a good look around the system. There's not, to be fair, there's not a massive amount to show you. It's all a little bit Gucci E-Peen type stuff, like we've put lights in it, and I know it's kind of a server based system, but we wanted to make it pretty for everyone on the videos. So I'm going to shut up, we'll bring you in for a look. we'll look at some benchmarks, because some of the graphical stuff is actually quite funny, especially seeing 48 threads in Cinebench going that's wicked. We'll show you speeds, because obviously the Xeons, you can't overclock these. It's not a motherboard problem, it's an Intel issue. So we've only got the kind of realms of the turbo to play with, and that's not something we can adjust manually. I have tried. So we'll have a good look at all this, and then we'll break off to a mind-boggling conclusion right at the end. Okay then peeps, so the system as you see it. It's quite a special looking system, because it's not very often you're going to get to see two AIOs wired in like this, especially with dual CPUs. The memory is 1600 megahertz. It's Corsair low profile, and we can start talking about kind of results and stuff now, because it is 1600 megahertz, but we did try faster memory in there as well. We got up to 1866, which the CPUs would run perfectly fine. Going beyond 1866, there's quite a jump to 2133, and with the older 8-core CPUs, we did just about manage to get them running 2133, but it took a lot of fettling in the BIOS with different volts, the VCSCA volts anyway, whatever it's called, I can never remember. You have to play around with that a lot and increase the V-core a fair bit. With these, I could not get 2133 running at all, and that was what with 2133 rated memory, and we also tried a second kit which is 2400 rated, just to make sure it wasn't a memory stick problem, and we couldn't get it running at all. So for the sake of the video, we've got 1600 megahertz in there, and we went with the white and the blue kits just because it looks pretty. Now the H75s that are in the roof, I've got the standard H75 kit fans on there, and I don't normally do it, but I did with this, and I've wired them up to the motherboard headers. Now I never normally do that, like I said, but what we've done is we've set it up to run what's called like a low fan profile, but even with it on the fast fan profile, the temperatures actually stay really good, considering that we are talking about processors with 12 cores in there. But we'll cover temps with you guys in a little bit. It was quite a problem for us to do temps, to be fair, because OCCT, for example, just kept erroring because it didn't know how to load up 48 threads. So that was quite funny. Now the board that we've got in there is the Asus Dual Xeon board that we used previously. And we've got a solid state drive in there for the memory. There's an AX1200 power supply in there. It's my original AX1200 that Corsair sent me a long time ago. But these are some custom cables. They're like a paracord braid that goes right the way down. So again, we were just trying to make things pretty. If you have a look at the top of the board, you can see there's two 8-pin powers and the 24 pins at the top as well. And that 24 pin is ridiculously tight in the top. Now we have, if I turn the studio lights off quickly while I trip over the microphone lead, you can see that we've got a little light in the top. That's an LED strip that we put around the back. Again, it's just to make it pretty so it looks nicer for you in the videos. And this rear fan is an AF140 Corsair, and we do have it blowing in, and that's just so that we've got air coming in, because obviously we've got two of the AIOs in the roof. But also, where we've done a hell of a lot of folding on this thing is to help keep these MOSFET coolers at the top of the motherboard cool. Now, again, I'll talk about this a little bit more in depth in the conclusion, but those MOSFET headers do get very warm. There's not a massive amount of volts being drawn by the CPUs, but they're obviously drawing a fair amount of amps, because those things are getting much warmer than they did with the older 8-core CPUs that I did previously. I mean, I didn't have any heat problems with those MOSFET things before, and now they do get quite toasty to the touch. It's verging on, if you run it as a silent rig and you've got the folding running, so those CPUs are at 100%, they get to the point where you know they're bloody warm. You really do. We've got two more AF but 120 blues in the front of the case, and obviously the case is a Corsair 900D. If I move back, I just realised we left the box on the top. So yeah, we've got the whole rig's in a Corsair 900D And we did that just because it was big enough for us to be able to get the boarding, because it's obviously much wider than you would expect. If I turn the studio lights back on again, a normal ATX board would be bolted in around here, so this is all extra real estate. So you've almost got like an ITX board nailed on the side of your ATX board there. So anyway, we're here to look at the CPUs. So I'm going to stop the camera quickly and I'm going to show you some lovely graphical benchmarks. Okay then Pete, so we'll start off with looking at CPU-Z. Now, something that I do want to say is this kind of section will be very dependent on the board that you use. If you were to use the SRX, you would get a much different kind of score here. I'll say score, but it would look much different because the CPUs are rated at 2.7 gigahertz, and then they can turbo up. Anything up to 3.4 or 3.5 gig, but obviously you only get a couple of cores running at that. With the Asus board, this generally sits at the 3 gig mark, and it'll occasionally flick up to 3.1 or 3.2, but most of the time it's sat there at 3 gig. If you try and go into the BIOS to manually set the turbo, it will just sit at the 2.7 mark. Now that's not an Asus board problem, that's an Intel CPU problem. What the Asus board is actually giving you a turbo a lot more than you would generally get. But the crazy thing that you need to look at is the volts. That's 0.388 volt that it's pulling at idle. That will flick up to about the 1 volt mark for when you're really stressing it and you've got the benchmarks and stuff running. But although it's only 1 volt, the amount of power that it's actually pulling, the amount of stress that it's putting the MOSFETs on, is what I said to you about with the with the heatsink problem that I mentioned to you earlier. And it's something that I've noticed is a significant difference to the 8 cores that I spoke about previously, because I've obviously tested those before. So yeah, so the Asus board does very well. Also, the Asus board does allow you to change the memory timings and the memory speed as well. And as I've already mentioned, we've not managed to get 2133 out of it no matter what we do, but that's a CPU issue. 1866 and below, it's you can just set the memory timings and just manually set the speed. You don't have to mess around with any of the supporting volts or anything like that. If you do play around with these supporting volts, then like I said, I could not get it up to 2133 for love nor money, and that's why we're using the pretty looking blue and white memory in there today rather than a faster spec kit. But anyway, let's move on to some Cinebench. Okay then peeps, so a lot of people that will end up wanting or lusting after a rig like this are probably going to be renderers, or people that do a lot of video editing, a lot of photo editing, 3D modelling, that type of thing, where they can utilise cores. And a lot of those people will use a Cinebench score as a way to see the power that the CPU's got available. It's actually a great tool. It gives you some, the scores are really, really useful, and it's actually free. So if you want to have a little play with this, Google Cinebench, download it, make sure you get the 11.5 release so you can compare it exactly with our scores, and then have a run of it on your rig. Now, for an overclocked Ivy CPU, you're probably going to get about 10 points. I've seen kind of around the sort of like 14, 15 mark with some of the bigger i7s on the 2011 socket. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click run. Now each one of the boxes is a core, so that's a really easy way for you to kind of gauge it. Now obviously we've straight in there, we've got a lot of boxes whizzing round. I love how quickly it does it. Right, so with bearing in mind what I said to you about scores, we've just got a 29.64 on Cinebench with this beast. Now, anyone out there that use Cinebench to select their parts because they do rendering and stuff, that's almost 30 points. There's all the renderers out there, video editors and 3D modelers have now quite literally just got a nerd on and are now wedged underneath their desk, because that is a ridiculous score. And I mean a ridiculous score. And I'm going to run it just again, just so that, you know, all of those nerds out there that are now drooling all into their desk can see all those little boxes disappearing round all over again. Because it's not a particularly long benchmark, and it's a nice way to see all those cores in action. And there you go, 29.64. I love it. Okay then peeps, so moving on to some W prime. Now, this is another program that anyone that's into CPU intensive tasks will like. Now, it does benefit from tight memory timings if you're going to start going to overclocking and stuff like that. But for our test today, we don't really need to worry. Now, the only thing that we do need to do, because I'm going to do it in front of you, we need to set the thread count. And it's obviously not 4, it's 48. And why is it 48? It's because you've got 24 cores, 48 threads, so you load it up for the amount of hyper threads rather than the amount of physical cores. So we set the thread count there to 48. Now we've got 2 benches that we can run, 32M and then 1024M. Now if you want to see these kind of results, don't forget to click the review link underneath and you can see it in all the graphs. But the 32M, it does do rather swiftly. So we'll do that just so that you can laugh. It's done. And it was saying complete for a lot of that time then. I'm going to run it again just to show you, and as soon as I see complete, I'm going to start shouting. Complete, there we go. So if we go view scores, it did it in 3.09 seconds, and it's basically worked out. Yeah, it's bonkers crazy, bonkers crazy. But if we go back, what I'm going to do is I'm going to run 1024. Now normally I see this, you know, sort of around the 250 second mark, 300 seconds is not, you know, unusual for us to see that. Now we're already seeing 28% complete at 14 seconds. Right, 38%. One of them's at up to 47% now at 23. I'm seeing 56s. Now this might not be the most exhilarating YouTube video in the world, but again, go and download the W prime benchmark. Yeah, go and download the W prime benchmark and try running it on your own system, and then you compare the results to the one that we've got. Or if you don't want to do that, you can click the link underneath. Or we're finished. You can click the link underneath and you can go and see for yourself. So we'll view scores. So we've got 32M was 3.09 seconds and 1024M was 48.394 seconds. So didn't even get to hundreds, and it's honestly, that's why I wanted to show you, because it's a bonkers score. Now, one of the things is we have loaded up and we did do some basic 3D tests, and by 3D tests I mean like 3D mark and stuff, but it's really not for gaming. You'd be surprised how little it does utilise those cores. So have a look at the results underneath. You can go and see there. We've also done in the main review, we've done some X264 benchmarks, we've used IDA, we've used Sandra, we've done lots of bits and bobs like that. But what I want to move on to now, and I need to stop the camera for it to set it up, is some folding at home stuff. Okay then peeps, so we've got folding at home GPU tracker set up. You can use this, or you can use the normal V7 client, which is down the bottom here. But the V7 client, as I was trying to explain earlier on about we've had problems with threads, is when you run the V7 client, it won't let you enable, or it won't let you tell the program to run more than 32 threads. We've obviously got 48 available, so even though it's only 24 cores, you need to enable 48 of them. Now I have just about bodged it to get the GPU tracker running, but where the PPD we're getting is not quite as high as we were expecting for these CPUs. So this is going to be something that I am going to do more of in the not too distant future. But we can see all the temps down here as well, and we've obviously got 12 cores, so it's 0 to down here. Look, you can go whiz all the way down through all the cores. So we've got all the temperatures and stuff there, and we've got the system set up for properly quiet mode as well. But what we're going to do is I'm going to start CPU, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait for the PPD up here to go green, and then I'll cut back and I will talk to you about it. In a second, you'll see the CPU usage here go up to 100, which is quite funny considering we've got all these cores here that it's waiting to get cracking with. There we go, she's off. Right, so CPU is now at 100%. You can see all of our cores, the graph is spiked. And in fact, I'll drag it up so you can see a little bit easier. So the graph is spiked. So we know she's away now. So what I'm going to do is you have to wait for it to do a couple of percent on the PPD, and then that will go green. And I'll come back and talk to you then. But at the moment, it's saying 123,000 points per day. But again, once it's gone green, I will be back. Okay then, so we've left this running now for probably 30 minutes, maybe 40 minutes. We've actually just eaten some hot dogs. So if I burp, that's what you're going to be smelling. Oh yeah. Anyway, so we can see PPD up here. It says 127,437, and that's on a 8558 project, which is worth 1,668 points per work unit that it goes through. It's nearly 91% complete, so 127k on that work unit. It is maxing it out now, which I wasn't able to get it working with the V7 folding client, so that's a good thing. Also, these temperatures down this outside, you can see the max has been recorded. The first one does seem to run a little bit cooler, excuse me, than the second one, but we need to kind of remember that the H75s, the fans on them are literally they're so quiet, it's ridiculous. I think they're running at about 850, 900 RPM continuously as a static speed. And if I scan down through the hottest core, because we don't look at the package, the hottest core is 76 on the second one, but then most of them are all mid 60s. This one up here are all mid 60s, so this might be a bad mount or something on this. So we could, we could take it on and off a few times. But as I said, that is with it running ridiculously quiet. So if we've got a core running at 100%, 76 degrees, it's silent. And let's not forget that it's surrounded by another 11 cores. I really don't see that being a bad temperature for the CPU itself, or B, that the H75 is doing that badly either. If we turn the fans up so that they're doing about 1500 RPM, that hottest core then will be down in the mid 60s as well, and some of these will actually go down into the 50s. Xeons are brilliant for temperatures. I would say though, if I was going to run this, I would run a little bit of extra motherboard cooling just to keep those MOSFET heatsinks a little bit cooler. But then again, if we were going to do that, then we could also turn the H75s up as well to help get the air out of the case, because at the moment there's not a humongous amount of airflow where it's quite quiet. And just to show you how these temperatures all plummet, we can see the values down this side. So this is the active temperatures. If we were to stop the CPU, you see that comes down to 0, and now these temps are all plummeting now, low 50s going down into the 40s. So that's pretty impressive really. But don't forget to click on the review link down at the bottom so you can see all of these results in the graphs on the main website, on the main review, and all the photos and all that kind of stuff. But now we're going to move on and get this thing wrapped up in a conclusion. Okay then peeps, on to the conclusion. So we need to start with an award and then kind of explain all the stuff why. Now really it kind of writes itself. It's a performance award because the price is eye-watering, which is another reason why it's an OverKILL3D video. It's not for the faint-hearted, but the performance is there. For all of those of you out there, as I've said previously, the video editors, the 3D renderers, the photo editors, all of those people that are going to be using programs that need all of those cores, so very multi-threaded applications, will absolutely love this rig. For those of you out there where time is money, and cutting your render time by an hour means could mean that this thing pays for itself within a few months. So for those of you out there, those are the people with the big budgets that are going to be looking for as many cores and as much performance as possible. They're probably not even going to be fussed at £2,000 each, that they're just going to want them. One thing I can't stress enough is the reasons why we've not done gaming results and stuff like that is when we tested the 8 cores previously, to put it into context, an overclocked i7 on a normal Rampage 4 board was outperforming in the games, even with the exact same graphics card, than the older Xeon. So the fact that the clock speed on these is actually lower than the last Xeons that we did, these will and did actually perform worse than those, because it's just something that we noticed that when talking about silly amounts of cores versus clock speed, games definitely do prefer that clock speed more. But like I said, we're talking about a processor here that's going to be running at 3 GHz versus a processor that's still got 8 threads available to it, but they're all going to be running at 4.6 or 4.8 GHz. It's just that extra little bit more that those games do seem to work with. Now, I know a lot of games are becoming more multi-threaded nowadays, and that's all a very, very good thing, but not 48 threads. It's never really going to, utilise it enough. There's a lot of people kind of shouting at the screen now, going about Battlefield, and now that's meant to be, multi-threaded. But let's face it, peeps, why would you want to spend £4,000 on these type of processors to play Battlefield, which will play on an APU and a very basic graphics card at 1080p? It's kind of like, and be spending all that money when you'd be it's pointless with that type of game. And the other type of games, I mean, like Witcher and stuff like that might they actually don't, and they're more concerned on the graphics card side of things, or a CPU with a higher clock speed. So I just want to kind of get those points out there. But Cinebench, nearly 30 points in Cinebench. I never thought I would be seeing that type of thing without a ridiculous, like, humongous overclock or something. So 30 points in Cinebench, and we're running stock, like, 3.1 GHz CPUs. It's fucking bonkers. It's mental. So the performance is there for the right people. It's not a choice for gamers anymore. When Intel took the overclocking away, it really kind of crushed the old days when overclocking Xeons could meant like the most bonkers rigs in the world. So they've taken that kind of essence of the gaming away from it, and I don't necessarily see that as being a bad thing. I think I kind of prefer it this way. Obviously, we are going to be doing some more folding at home stuff. You do need to remember the 98860. That is the OverKILL3D folding team. Get in there and support us if you want. I will put a link underneath to the forums. If you don't know what it is, it's actually really simple to get started, and there's lots of people on the forums that will be able to help you get started as well. But just please remember, it does mean a lot of heat, so you do need to get rid of that heat. So if you've got a noisy rig, then you might want to start thinking about how to make it cool and quiet at the same time. So yeah, folding we will be doing more. I may even be exploring the options of running this rig just for folding on Linux, because there's some ridiculous PPD that I've had hinted to me, like over 500,000 points per day. So if I can get that running on Linux with this setup and get those kind of points, then I will make another video just to kind of get you into it. But let me know what you think, because like I said, I know it's it's overkill in the, we've put lights in it and all that, braided cables and coloured fans and all that kind of stuff for Xeons, but I wanted to make it look pretty, and it's simple, but I think it still looks quite nice. Simple, not simple like that, but simple as in it's it's clean lines and stuff like that. Anyway, performance awards for the Intel Xeon E5 2697 V2s, 12 cores, 24 threads per CPU, and we're running 2 of them. But for now at least, this is Tiny Tom Logan with another OverKILL3D video for you. Out.